lost my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
Join me on Patreon to watch up to 5 episodes of this series and others in advance that are live right now. With that said, enjoy. Like any hardened soldier, one always expected to come home to a well-prepared meal after days, even weeks, of surviving off tasteless rations and alien scraps. The Saiyan warrior Salipa was no exception. In the dining hall, she sat at one of the long steel tables, devouring her meal with the hunger of someone who had fought too long without rest. Rich meats and heavy stews filled her plate, but it was the ice-cold water in her insulated cup and the mountain of ice cream that seemed to dominate her feast. Salipa stuffed her face, drowning herself in cold sweetness, though her movements were slower than usual. Her mind wasn't in the present, not fully. She couldn't stop thinking about her 2 fallen comrades, the carefree Leek and the brash, reckless Taro. In all her years of battle, she had never once seen a Saiyan willingly risk their life just to ensure their team survived. That wasn't their way. Saiyans were taught from birth, every warrior for themselves. Survive, win, move forward. Sacrifice? That was weakness. It wasn't their custom. But Taro had gone against that code. The thought knotted in her chest. She scooped another spoonful of melting ice cream into her mouth, but her appetite dimmed the more she thought on it. Would she, if given the choice, ever throw her life away for someone else? For someone she truly cared about? Her jaw tightened. Now's not the time to go soft, she told herself, shaking the thoughts away. A loud, teasing voice rang out from the dining hall doors. "Well, look who we've got here, he he he." Salipa looked up sharply. Standing side by side were Totopo and Pumbuken, both grinning like fools. About time you two got out. She downed the last of her half-melted carton of ice cream and slammed it onto the table. Bardock and Toma out too? Nah, Pumbuken plopped himself down beside her, snapping his fingers above his head. A servant rushed over, already knowing the sign for a new round of food. Doctor said Bardock's gonna be out in a bit, though. Where's Taro? Totopo asked casually, though there was a strange edge in his tone. He remembered the chaos of the mission only up to the point where he'd blacked out. Waking up, Taro was nowhere, neither in the rejuvenation chamber nor here in the hall. He needed to hear it from someone before he assumed the worst. Salipa stayed quiet. That silence told them everything. Totopo's head dipped low, his expression grim, mourning quietly in his own way. Pumbuken, however, just scratched the scar along his cheek and let out a heavy exhale. Huh, shame we had to lose 2 people just to crawl out of that dump alive. Really is, Salipa muttered. But Pumbuken shrugged, his tone as blunt as ever. That's how it is. Saiyans die in combat every day. We all know it's only a matter of time before one of us gets picked off. Just glad it wasn't me. Salipa clenched her fist beneath the table. I doubt the others think the same. She rose from her seat, stepping away from the noise of the dining hall. Totopo and Pumbuken didn't move, already filling the long table with empty plates and bowls as servers scrambled to keep up with their orders. By the time Salipa made it into the medical ward, Bardock was already fastening his wristbands. His rugged form cast a strong silhouette in the sterile light as he dressed himself, and he noticed her only by catching the sight of her dark boots in his peripheral vision. Taro's gone, isn't he? He asked flatly. Salipa leaned back against the cold metallic wall, crossing her arms. She let out a sigh, her words heavy. Yeah, my only use was keeping them distracted. He burned through all my Saibamen, then got caught in an explosion with that fish-face creep. Whatever place Taro's headed, that bastard's burning there with him. Bardock arched an eyebrow. Was that frustration in her voice? Regret? That wasn't like her. Not Salipa. There's one thing you can't forget, Bardock said, stepping past her toward the exit. Their shoulders lined up, the warrior's voice steady, rough with truth. Those people we slaughtered, they had every right to fight back. We landed on their world, killed their kin, ripped their lives away. We did the job we were ordered to, and they did everything they could to defend themselves. That's what warriors do. If you're upset, fine. But don't forget, if anyone's to blame, it's us. He patted her shoulder once, firm but not unkind, before heading for the dining hall. Salipa's eyes drifted to the doctor in the corner, who gave a solemn nod in quiet agreement with Bardock's words. He has a point, the doctor murmured. A sharp beep filled the room. The rejuvenation tank at the far side opened, mist rolling off the glass as Toma stepped forward, the last of their team to fully recover. Salipa's eyes softened at the sight of him alive. Good to see you're still with us, Toma. Normally, the rare sight of Salipa smiling would have coaxed one from Toma too, but not this time. He stepped out of the tank bare, his expression hard, scanning the room with an intensity that told her he already knew. Deep down, he knew what had happened to their comrades in those final moments. Clothes, doctor? He said firmly. Ah, right here. The doctor answered quickly, patting the counter behind him where a folded set of armor and gear waited. Toma shoved past the doctor to snatch up his clothes, nearly knocking the frail man over in the process. His tone was sharp, demanding. Did any of you file the report on Kanasa yet? No, Salipa replied evenly. I thought we could do that once you were fully awake. Good. Toma tugged on his armor, fastening the chest piece with rough hands. We're going to report this mission directly to the king himself. Her brow furrowed. Really? Why? Kanasa isn't just another backwater assignment. Even past warriors, stronger than us, couldn't survive it. But we did, and now we know why they didn't. If we present this victory straight to the king, that alone could earn us all a promotion to mid-class. Salipa tapped her lip with a finger, eyes narrowing as she considered it. The man had a point. The king knew Kanasa wasn't some trivial conquest. For a squad of low-class soldiers to march into his presence and declare victory over it, that would force him to reconsider their worth. Maybe even grant them status. Genius, she admitted at last, giving a rare smirk. It's nice to see that drive of yours hasn't died with you yet, Toma. Humph. Toma pulled his tattered, blood-stained bandana from the pile of discarded gear and wrapped it tightly around his arm. But it sure has with Taro. Salipa blinked. So, you already knew. Fastening his green scouter over his eye, Toma stepped toward the exit. Of course. I overheard you and Bardock. We don't sleep the entire time inside those tanks, Salipa. I heard everything. I know exactly how my brother died. And it's pathetic. His voice cut like steel, slicing through her attempt at comfort. No Saiyan should ever sacrifice themselves just so other low levels can keep breathing, even if one of those weaklings was their brother. His eye glowed cold beneath the scouter lens. Salipa followed him, their boots echoing against the steel floor as they made their way through the corridors, toward the landing site instead of the dining hall. How is it pathetic? She pressed. Most people could never bring themselves to do that. Not even I could give up my own life for most. Most, Toma echoed, spitting the word like venom. His pace slowed, head tilting back slightly. But you'd do it for someone, wouldn't you? Her silence said more than any admission could. Exactly, he muttered, lips twisting into something between disgust and resignation. So, what's bad about it? She challenged. We still completed the mission. That's all that matters to you, isn't it? Toma inhaled deeply, but said nothing, his silence heavier than any insult. His thoughts drifted back, unbidden, to the last words his brother had once shared with him under Kanasa's moonlit sky. I used to think the same, and I still do to a point. But when you grow older, you realize warriors who die like that are the ones who deserve respect the most. Respect? For dying? What sense did that make? A Saiyan who gave up his life was just a corpse, robbed of the chance to grow stronger. What purpose did it serve the individual? Since when did their kind value nobility over survival? They were mercenaries, warriors, killers, not saints. And yet, Toma's eyes burned, fluttering as if dust had gotten into them. But there was nothing in the air, only his brother's words, pressing into his mind. I couldn't do either, but only the bravest go out that way. And Taro had. Toma had once asked him if he would ever give his life for him. Taro had said no, flat and unflinching. But in the end, that was a lie. Why lie, Taro? Was it pride or shame? Taro had thrown everything away. His rank, his ambition, his chance at power. He abandoned the climb up Saiyan society's brutal ladder. But Toma hadn't. He still dreamed of clawing his way from nothing, of rising to become a noble among their people. Did you do it so I could succeed? He wondered bitterly. No, you wouldn't. Not you. By the time they reached the middle deck of the ship, the pilot chamber just ahead, Toma stopped abruptly and sank to the floor. His back pressed to the cold white wall, knees drawn up, head bowed low. His breathing trembled, shallow. Toma? Salipa asked softly. He didn't lift his head. His face was hidden, but she could see it, the tears streaking down, dripping onto the metal floor. Her eyes widened. Tears. Was he crying? The idea was almost absurd. Any Saiyan soldier who cried would be mocked, beaten, laughed out of the barracks. Even Salipa herself would have laughed once. But this was different. This was Toma, the warrior she'd fought beside, the man she'd come to know better than anyone on her squad. And now, for the first time in her life, Salipa felt it. Empathy. Not scorn, not contempt. She felt sorry for him. Toma. Salipa lowered herself beside him, her voice softer than steel had ever allowed. With gentle fingers, she lifted his chin, forcing his gaze to hers. His face was red, streaked with tears. In that instant, the hardened warrior looked like nothing more than a lost child. She realized then, he hadn't been cold about Taro's death at all. He had been burying the pain deep inside, trying to cage feelings that refused to die. How could Taro do such a thing? He scowled, voice rough with grief. If the fool had stayed home, he'd still be alive right now. Salipa's eyes narrowed. If that fool stayed home, we wouldn't be alive right now. Maybe that was his purpose, not just to fight, but to cut his life short so you could fight longer. He gave that to all of us. Toma sucked in a sharp breath and closed his eyes tight, fighting to steady himself. When he opened them again, his stare was unshakable. Promise me you won't do the same. Her brow lifted. Me? Yes, you. His voice cracked, but his grip was firm as he placed his hands behind her neck, pulling her closer. Don't be a fool like my brother. Our father and mother never gave a damn about us, and we didn't give a damn about them. All I had was Taro. But once he introduced me to Bardock, everything changed. Bardock, Totopo, Pumbuken, and you. You four are all I have now. So promise me, Salipa. Promise me. Her heart thudded against her chest, faster and heavier than any battle had ever made it beat. These weren't the sensations of combat. They were foreign, frightening, and intoxicating all at once. Anything for you, tough guy, she whispered, her tone carrying an uncharacteristic tease. Toma blinked, then let out a short laugh at her words, and for the first time since leaving the chamber, his lips curved into a smile. Salipa laughed too, the sound raw and genuine, until the air between them grew quiet again. Their faces remained mere inches apart, close enough that their warm breaths mingled together. The scent of her drew him in. The warmth radiating from him drew her closer. Their tails, once coiled tightly at their waists, loosened instinctively and began to sway. Slowly, as if their bodies already knew the truth their minds refused to admit, their tails wrapped firmly around one another. And then the hardened eye contact broke, replaced by closed eyes as their lips finally touched. It was nothing like battle. It was gentler, fiercer, stranger, and they both liked it. Outside, the landing site was filled with laughter and heavy steps as Bardock, Totopo, and Pumbuken made their way back toward the ship, stomachs still full from the feast. Bardock, assuming the others had left to prepare, expected to find them in the chamber or the bridge. But when the hatch opened, The three walked in and froze. Their eyes locked on Toma and Salipa, entangled in a moment far too intimate for comrades, especially in the middle of the ship. Pambukin's jaw dropped, and with an exaggerated anime flop, he fell flat on his back. "You've gotta be kidding me!" Totapo scratched his head, mumbling under his breath. This is gonna be the quietest trip home in history. Bardock, however, only shook his head, not surprised. Not at all. In the middle of the ship? Really? He muttered. His eyes slid toward the back room. Could have at least used that. But Toma and Salipa didn't care. Not now. They were too deep in feelings they'd denied for far too long. Later, back on planet Vegeta, Toma stood tall before the throne, his voice steady though his chest was heavy. "And that's how it went down, sir. The Kanasan resistance is broken. Their world holds little profit beyond being stripped for mining, but the mission is finished. We regret to report that Taro, our primary strategist, has fallen." King Vegeta leaned back on his throne, sharp eyes glinting with something between surprise and admiration. He had expected failure, slaughter. That's what Kanasa had been. A test, a graveyard for low-class soldiers. Yet here they stood, bruised but alive. "I must say, well done." The king's voice was stern, but there was no mistaking the note of respect within it. "I will not lie to you. Kanasa was a throwaway assignment, a world I consigned to the hands of a new squad to gauge their worth. I never expected survival, much less success. And yet, despite your losses, you return victorious. That is no small feat." He raised a hand and snapped his fingers. A mid-class soldier stepped forward immediately, armored and stern, bowing before Toma and his team. Nappa stepped forward, his huge frame towering over the squad. In his hand gleamed dozens of long silver bars, the standard currency across the galaxy under Frieza's iron policy. He grinned wide, his voice gruff. "Here you all are. Be nice now, don't start clawing each other over it, hey hey." "Thank you," Toma said, taking the stack with an open hand. He divided the currency evenly among himself, Bardock, Salipa, Totapo, and Pambukin. Pambukin's eyes lit up like twin suns. His hands trembled with glee as he stared down at the credits. His mind filled instantly with visions of feasts, banquets, and endless plates of food. His mouth nearly watered right there on the palace floor. "That will be all," King Vegeta said from his throne, his voice calm but commanding. "I appreciate your service." But Toma wasn't finished. He rose to his feet, daring to step forward. He even moved past Nappa, an act that made several guards bristle. Two of Vegeta's men instantly stepped in front of him, blocking his path with eyes as cold as stone. Their silent stares carried one promise: make the wrong move and die here and now. Toma halted, his mind racing. He knew he had one chance, one wrong word, and his ambition would end before it ever took flight. He chose carefully. "Sir, if you don't mind." "Move," Vegeta ordered, his tone sharp. The guards obeyed immediately, stepping aside and sliding back into line by the throne. Now, with the king's unspoken permission, Toma pressed forward. "This mission was difficult beyond measure," Toma began, voice steady but firm. "Many times we were close to death. And it shows why so many before us failed to accomplish it. For a band of low-class soldiers to succeed where others fell, would that not merit promotion?" The throne room fell silent. A bold question. Some guts, this soldier has. Vegeta leaned forward slightly, his sharp eyes gleaming. "If you didn't already know, which I'm certain you do, I only promote warriors who truly catch my eye. You make a fair point. But here is the real question. Are you strong enough to be promoted?" He smirked faintly. "Alone, none of you would have survived Kanasa. Your strength lies in numbers, so prove to me you are more than that." Toma froze, silence choking him. "Scan their battle powers," the king ordered. Scouters beeped across the room as several soldiers turned their lenses toward the squad. Data streamed across their displays, numbers climbing higher and higher. Soon, the murmurs began, whispers of disbelief at the readings. As a collective, their powers near 11,000, one soldier announced. Individually, 2,520, 2,460, 2,370, 2,280, and 2,175. The throne room stirred. These were no average low-class readings. Their strength exceeded expectations. But were they mid-class? Vegeta stroked his goatee, intrigued. Impressive. Stronger than most of your rank. You've grown past the limits expected of your class. But... His voice hardened. I am still unconvinced. You have promise, yes, but you are not yet ready to ascend. Not without further proof. Toma opened his mouth to object. But... Salipa pinched his tail sharply, cutting him off. Her eyes warned him silently. Don't push it. Toma grimaced, swallowed his pride, and dropped to one knee. Thank you, my king. Carry on, Vegeta said, leaning back once more. The squad left the chamber, but behind them, the king sat deep in thought, fingers brushing over his beard. Until now, Saiyan promotions had been based solely on individual feats of strength. But perhaps there was another way. Perhaps raw numbers alone could determine who deserved to rise. All they need, Vegeta muttered, is to reach a certain power level. That should decide promotion. His eyes gleamed. A new order was already forming in his mind. Zorn, he commanded suddenly, turning to his aide. Tomorrow morning, remind me to gather every Saiyan on the planet by the palace. For what cause, sire, if I may ask? Zorn ventured. I am going to make an announcement. The next morning, King Vegeta stood tall on the grand landing site below the palace, gazing down upon a sea of warriors and civilians alike. Hundreds of Saiyans filled the grounds, their voices a chorus of murmurs and speculation. At his side stood his mid-class guards, his son, and even the kingdom's prodigious scientist, Kuni. Among the crowd, Gino held little Kakarot on her shoulders, standing with Bardock and Raditz. Any idea what this is about? Gina asked, her brow furrowed. Bardock crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. No clue. My first guess was a mission, but this is different. Too many non-combatants here. Whatever it is, let's hope it's not something reckless. Yeah, right, Jean muttered. The crowd buzzed louder and louder, their voices overlapping into a roar of chatter. The air was thick with impatience and curiosity. The king waited, standing tall, his patience as sharp as his power. Slowly, the noise began to settle, but even as quiet fell, small conversations continued to ripple through the masses, like a restless convention waiting for the main event. The restless murmurs of the crowd cut short the moment King Vegeta raised his hand. With a casual flick of his wrist, he detonated a small ki blast above their heads. The crackling explosion echoed across the landing site, silencing the masses instantly. All eyes turned to their ruler. Women, men, children, and all soldiers, keep your ears open. Vegeta's voice boomed like thunder as he folded his arms across his chest. Recently, a band of warriors came before me to report their success in a mission. A mission so dangerous, so unforgiving, that even my top-tier soldiers could not accomplish it. And yet, they did, and they were all low levels. Now, these soldiers believe they have earned the right to promotion. Raditz tugged at Bardock's arm, whispering, Is he talking about you, father? Yes, Bardock said curtly, his sharp gaze fixed on the king. Now listen. For far too long, Vegeta continued, the promotion of our warriors has been determined by one measure alone, their power. Whether it grows, whether it proves itself in combat. Because of this, the number of noblemen in our society remains pathetically low. That ends today. From this day forward, the system will change. He turned slightly, raising his chin. Kuni, step forward. The young clone blinked in shock. Oh? She muttered under her breath. She had believed herself a bystander, no more than a silent witness to the king's address. but to refuse him now would be suicide. Gathering her composure, she obeyed, walking toward the railing beside the king. And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoy the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.